Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder.
Have you checked the children?
I want to play a game. The box. You opened it. We came.
Here.
This is the All-American Spookshow.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the All-American Spookshow podcast. I'm Josh. I'm joined here with Donnie.
Yo.
Will.
Hey.
And the Professor Smoke.
What's up?
And this week it's way different from last week. Last week's Cult Corner we watched the 1986 classic, BMX classic Rad. This is a complete opposite side of movies, period. And we're going to be talking about Midsommar from 2019. Will, this was you picked this one, right?
Yes, sir.
You've seen this before, obviously. What made you want to draw this one out right now?
Well, honestly, it was just such a different pull. Like, it's such a unique movie.
It is.
So I thought it'd be fun to kind of get in and talk about it.
Especially, like I said, the comparison with Rad. It's so much different from something like that, right? Or even Mother's Boys that we had done before that. Good God. I failed to ask you guys last week. Smoke, you or Donnie, did either of you get a chance to watch Mother's Boys yet?
I have not yet.
You guys talked it up so much. Just like you guys were so excited to share your thoughts about it. I was not, that inclined to, check it out.
Well, the time will come. The time will come. I'm sure we wait. We wait with bated breath. We wait to hear your thoughts on Mother's Boys. But anyways, yeah. So moving past that, much more more meaty, more entertaining things to talk about here with Midsommar. Smoke, I know you've watched it and you enjoyed it. Donnie, have you seen this before?
This was my very first time I've watched it. So yeah.
So it'll be interesting. We've got some fresh meat here. We've got experienced veteran watcherships here. So we're gonna have all across the board here some different opinions and stuff. Some fresh takes.
One thing that's new for me this time around is I watched the director's cut, and I have not seen that before.
Okay.
This.
How much longer? Because this one's good. Good Lord, how long was this? This is like 2.5 hours. Right? Yeah, it was 2 hours and 28 minutes. So how much longer was the director's cut?
I believe I read that it was 171 minutes long, so it's almost 30 minutes longer, right?
I'm not good at the math. You can't ask me math on the.
I was. Like as soon as I saw the runtime, I'm like, man, motherfucker. Man.
It's a long one. I will say though, just before we get deep into it, I feel it's a fairly fast 228. It's a long movie, and certain parts do drag a little bit, but I think it didn't necessarily like, oh God, like you're not clock watching.
It wasn't as bad as I had originally, thought. I'm just like, man, fuck, 824 for this long.
Wait until we watch The Stand. Wait until we watch The Stand. We'll get to that one of these days.
Shit.
Then you'll be like, let's watch Midsommar again.
Wait till we do book reviews and you have to read The Stand. Because I think we're doing a book review section, right? And you say, nah.
I quit.
It's going to be called the Spookshow Book Nook.
I quit. I'm out.
Anyway, so before we get into it, we want to encourage you to go check out aaspookshow.com. That's the center of the Spook Show universe. From there, you can go to our YouTube channel, where we've got such hits as Video Vortex, Hammer Horror, In Order, Grindhouse Gutter, lots of cool stuff. You can also from there go to, of course, our podcast archives. Pretty much every episode is there. It'll get you over to our Podbean page where all of our episodes are archived. We also encourage you from there to go to our Patreon, patreon.com/aaspookshow, where every month you get video minisodes, including The Library of the Professor, Crapster Pete's Theater every month. If you've ever voted on Crapster Pete's Theater, thanks. Also, please go to Patreon and become a patron to further encourage Crapster Pete's Theater. How about that?
Let's talk about the crap that you picked. You have to join Patreon.
Oh, God. Yeah. Please help us out. I mean, if you're making us do it, the least you can do is throw us a few bucks to help the cause over there. So yeah, with all that out of the way, we'll go and toss to the trailer for Midsommar.
I told you that I want to go to that festival in Sweden.
No, you said it would be cool to go.
Yeah, and then I got the opportunity and I decided
Look,
to do it.
I don't mind you going. I just wish you would have told me. That's all.
Dude, she needs a therapist. You've been wanting out of this stupid relationship for like a year now.
And don't forget about all of the beautiful Swedish women you'll meet in June.
Okay, guys.
That's not her again. Seriously?
Babe, what's happening? Danny.
I was so very sorry to hear about what happened.
I'm sorry.
I invited Danny to come to Sweden. You know what she's been going through.
Christian says you've got this special week planned.
It's sort of a crazy festival. Special ceremonies and dressing up.
That sounds fun.
Unbelievable.
Welcome and happy midsummer. Skål!
What time is it?
9 p.m.
That can't be right. The sky is blue.
This is what 9 p.m. is like here.
How long have you two been together?
Just over 3.5 years.
4 years.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you think?
It's like another world.
Tomorrow's a big day.
Is it scary?
What is it?
It has special properties.
What am I going through?
We just need to acclimate.
I don't want to acclimate. I want to go.
Absolutely not.
What's happening? I don't know why you invited us.
That's why you look so guilty right now, because you know.
We only do this every 90 years. I was most excited for you to come.
All right, there you go. That's the trailer for that. So I guess we'll go ahead and dive a little bit into the background here. Now, I didn't do as much deep dive type stuff, but it is a newer movie, so there's not as much out there as say when we're talking about Rad and you can dig up some old facts and numbers and stuff like that. But this movie was released July 3rd, 2019. It was produced by Square Peg, Be Real Films, and A24, and of course distributed by A24. Smoke, I think, is this the first A24? No, wait a minute. We did The Witch. Was that A24?
The Witch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which that was the only other. I think. I guess these will be the only two A24 films, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah. Another one's not coming to mind right away, I know that will change, but as the months and years go by. But this one is rated R. Total runtime, like we just said, of 2 hours and 28 minutes. So it's a sit down and watch. Get in a comfortable chair, get your snacks, drinks, and all that ready because it's a long one. Overall,
especially as we referenced, if you're watching the director's cut, you got an extra 24.
Yeah, even more hard ass time. Over on IMDb, it's listed as a drama / horror / mystery. It was filmed in Budapest, Hungary. Certain scenes were filmed in Utah and in New York City, New York, between August 5th and October 6th of 2018 for a budget of $9 million and went on to a worldwide gross of $48.1 million. So, not crazy numbers there, but clearly it was successful, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And this was his second movie, right? We didn't cover his first movie, Hereditary, but at some point we'll get to that.
Yeah. He's still only, as far as feature length, he's only made a few, right? I think he's got one coming out. Ari Aster is who we're talking about. Pronouns.
Yeah.
Yeah, his latest one is out now, I believe, and it's Beau is Afraid.
Beau is Afraid, yeah. And I think the only other ones were, correct me if I'm wrong, was this one and Hereditary, right? I mean, there might have been some other ones before that, but as far as big
short
ones,
films, something like that. But and I don't know if it's if there was anything before the A24 that was just smaller and even more independent. But yeah, as far as big movies, Hereditary, this one, Midsommar, and then the new one, Beau is Afraid.
Yeah. I've got the top 10 from the weekend that it was released. So it came out. It's obviously right in the middle of the summer, midsummer. So this is the big franchise, big tentpole time of the year, at least in the U.S. box office. So this is July 5th through the 7th of 2019. Number 10, Rocket Man. Number 9, Avengers Endgame was in its 11th week. It was at this point about $847 million at this point. So it's actually on the tail end, but still, Endgame was kicking ass. Number 8, Men in Black International. I never saw that one. I completely forgot they even made it, to be honest with you. Number 7, The Secret Life of Pets 2. Number 6 in its opening weekend, Midsommar made $6.5 million. But this was its actual, this was just its official wide release, right? It had already made $10.9 million cumulatively up to this point because, the limited release. But yeah, so even at this point, opening weekend, $10.9 million. Number 5, Aladdin. That was the live action remake. Number 4, Annabelle Comes Home. There you go. One of Donnie's favorites. That's what it was up against. Any words for old Annabelle? Number 3, Yesterday. Number 2, Toy Story 4 was in its 3rd week, and it already was over $300 million at this point. And then number 1, Spider-Man Far From Home in its opening weekend made $92.5 million. By the way, already in its opening weekend, cumulatively, worldwide and everything, it was already over $185 million. So, yeah, like I said, this is the July 4th weekend. This is the big holiday weekend here in the U.S. Big weekend for movies. That being said, though, Midsommar still performed pretty well for a horror movie, a long-form type of, what would you say, Smoke? How some people would classify this as elevated horror, right?
Yeah, I think that, there's, I guess, 2 subgenres that would fall into elevated horror being that sort of art house horror like The Witch, and we could go into a number of other movies. Well, The Witch is the one that we've covered. And then also folk horror, it kind of falls into that. It definitely falls into that category, too.
This one was, as we said, directed by Ari Aster and written by Ari Aster. It stars Florence Pugh as Dani. She would, probably at this point, she would better be known from her role in the MCU, right? God, what was the role?
Sister.
She was sister of Black Widow. Yeah, she was in Black Widow, but Yelena Belova. That's what basically like the new Black Widow, right? In the MCU. But that's probably the one. She's been in a lot of other stuff. She's successful, but that's probably the one thing that most people would probably ping her from right away. It also stars Jack Rayner as Christian, Wilhelm Blomgren as Pell. Isn't that how you said his name? The guy that brought them to the village, right? Pelle or Pell. William Jackson Harper as Josh, and Will Poulter as Mark. So, yeah, I think casting wise, it's a pretty great cast. Florence Pugh, of course, is acting her ass off in this movie. So, she does a hell of a job. But yeah, was there anything else you guys wanted to bring up before we get into it?
One thing off the top: how many of us here have seen the original Wicker Man from the 70s? The British one.
I have, and I've seen the Nicolas Cage one too. So there's that.
Yeah, I've seen both.
Yep. Although it has been a while for both, but I have seen them both. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, that's one of those cornerstones of folk horror, and there's a lot of just parallels with this movie. It's by no means is it a remake or even a reimagining, but if you were to put those 2 movies side by side and watch them, you would see a lot of correlations, I guess, that were probably, I'm sure it was an influence to him when he made this movie. Nothing's like shot for any kind of remakes or anything, but the storyline and the way it unfolds, very complimentary to The Wicker, that's another one of my favorite 70s horror movies.
There's a lot of that similar type of culture and imagery type stuff in this one, right? When you're comparing, say that to what kind of the sub, not sub-genre, but the subtext and what is going on here.
Yeah.
In their world, right?
The conclusion as well, which we won't spoil, for those who haven't seen. We will spoil it for this, but we won't spoil it for The Wicker Man. But let's just say the way that things drive towards the climax is very familiar for those that have seen that movie.
Similar.
Yep.
That's probably a good time also to remind everybody that we are a spoiler-filled podcast. So if you have not seen Midsommar, and I think on the surface here, we encourage you to go check it out. We always encourage you to check it out yourself, form your own opinions. But before you hear us talk about it and give our our final star rating and everything, we're going to spoil it. So just as a reminder, if you want to see it, pause now, go check it out, and then come back and listen to the rest of this.
The one thing that I saw was the reason that it got the 30 minutes chopped down is because it was going to be an NC-17 movie.
Oh, yeah, that's one of the things. Now it wasn't. Now that'd be pretty brutal if 30 minutes worth was all gore, but but no, there was some extended scenes. Yeah, I know. Like for instance, once we get to the, for lack of a better word, the cliff scene, right? Once we get to, we'll explain it when we get to it. But that scene was a bit longer shots of what happened to them, when they jumped off the cliff, and then some other points too. But a lot of it also was characterization of the character of Danny and Christian's character, kind of their interplay, which kind of helps you. I can see why he cut it out to make the movie. I mean, it's already a long movie, and you're going to make it play a little bit faster, a little bit, pick up the pacing a little bit. But they were key scenes, so it is something that I would recommend for those who haven't seen the director's cut and have seen the original to check out the director's cut, because it just gives a little bit more fleshed out characterization to them and to why she does what she does and the way the film climaxes.
Hurry, step right this way, folks, for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, taste-tempting candies of finest quality. Enjoy popcorn, exploded into tender, delicious, crispy bites of crunchy goodness. Enjoy the tops in cool, refreshing soft drinks. If you want to enjoy some refreshments, this is your opportunity. There will now be a short intermission.
For you, the listeners of the All-American Spook Show podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So hop on over to audible.com. And Donnie, you're in for a treat, buddy. I know how you like your books. I just typed in Midsommar, see what would, and spelled the same way that they spell the title. See what will pop up. And I've got a couple of interesting titles here. I've got Cheffin's Dutrar, erotisk Midsommar novel by Alexandra Sodergran. That one's only 36 minutes, but it's an erotic novel. So 36 minutes, that's more than enough, right?
Is it a lot of moaning?
It's group moaning. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's just going to be like the elder couple that were just moaning right before they took their shots.
If that one, maybe that wasn't your cup of tea. Maybe that was the problem there. But I found another one here. There's another title called Knackin'.
I'm sorry. What?
Erotisk Midsommar novel. It's apparently it's part of the same series.
No. What's the name of it again?
Knackin'. It's 30. That one's only 34.
Spelled capitalized.
It's a capital N, A with a ampersand. I don't know what the hell's on top of that. It's Swedish, man. But it's erotic. But it's erotic.
Funny.
It's erotic. Well, I just assume that, when you're listening to something like this on audible.com, they're going to yell at you, What do I know? I don't listen to Swedish erotic novels on Audible. But if that's
Swedish, you might have a different, aspect of your Swedish, because like this movie apparently was played and premiered in Sweden, and they laughed at it. They thought it was a black comedy rather than, horror.
And they filmed it in Hungary, ironically.
Yeah.
But anyways, if you're into Swedish erotic novels, go to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audiobook. So, as we do here, I'm going to hop on over to Audible. No, I've already done Audible. Shit, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going over to IMDb, and I'm going to click on plot summaries to see what pops up, man. I'm just now digging to find it, so let's see. Oh, yeah, Donnie. Yeah, you're in for a treat.
I'm out. I quit, guys. See ya. Audible was enough.
Yeah, no, right. We got some. I'm going to read. I'm only, because there's a few. I'm only going to read two, all right? The really brief one. A couple travels to Northern Europe to visit a rural hometown's fabled Swedish midsummer festival. What begins as an idyllic retreat quickly devolves into an increasingly violent and bizarre competition at the hands of a pagan cult. I'm going to skip the other ones, and I'm just going to read the long one, all right? Because I think we need some depth. We need some depth of understanding so we can really talk about this on a serious plane. We need to be serious. This was posted by Nick Reganis over on IMDb. Traumatized and still struggling to come to terms with an appalling family tragedy, Danny, an American graduate student, turns to Christian, her self-centered and distant boyfriend, against the backdrop of their inevitable breakup. In high hopes of repairing their disintegrating relationship, Danny tags along with two of Christian's companions and their cryptic friend, Pelle, to attend a once-every-90-year summer solstice festival at an isolated pagan commune nestled in the heart of the Swedish province of Hälsingland. At last, for the first time in a long while, Danny feels happy. However, in this friendly and verdant haven of peace, harmony, and constant sunshine, the welcoming community's peculiar traditions start to blemish the folkloric utopia, as the uncomfortable feeling of uneasiness starts to creep up on Pelle's guests. But, in the eyes of the uninitiated newcomers, the naturalistic rituals seem brutal. Could a numbing truth be hiding in plain sight? Well, he used a lot of big words there, didn't he? Thanks, Nick.
Well, he's describing an A24 film. He felt he needed.
True, yeah, you need to smarten up those synopsises. Other than that, unlike that one we read last week for Rad, that was like, English clearly wasn't their first language.
Yeah.
Well, where do you want to start? I mean, I think the opening, the god-awful cold open here, not that it was bad, just like what happens is bad. Like, this is horrible, right?
Yeah.
And that's clearly, the hang-up and the trauma and the grief and everything throughout the rest of the movie is what happens right here in the first, 5 or 10 minutes, right? The murder-suicide.
Yeah, this poor girl loses her entire family, and she feels like it's her fault.
It's a tough one too. It's a tough watch. There's no doubt.
Rough start.
Yeah, the way it was shot and everything.
Yeah. But basically, to describe what happens here is she hooks up a hose to the back of a car and duct tapes it to her mouth, right? So it takes her out. But I guess there's another hose that goes into her parents' room and snuffs them out while they're asleep. It's rough.
Also, the movie kind of starts, I guess, to juxtapose. See what I did there? I'm like, I got to throw out some A24 words.
Yeah, there you go.
It starts off with a winter scene, right? The forest with the snow and all that, and then this horrific incident again. Very, I think it's done purposefully to be in wintertime, depressing. And then later on in the movie, when we come to Sweden and midsummer time and everything's bright and colorful, I think it was an interesting way to start the movie off and get that tone in her head, that depressive tone or whatever, just of it being winter and then giving way to summer once you get into the movie proper.
The winter of her discontent.
Yeah. Definitely discontent.
There's definitely a lot of that season stuff at play here in the movie, right? The winter, fall, spring, summer, That's a common theme throughout the movie, right?
Yeah.
But to get away from the fancy stuff, when they finally arrive there in Sweden, then they just trip balls. They take some good shit.
Yeah, before we actually get into that, there's some really good editing here. From when they go from the apartment to the plain bathroom,
it's shot. It's well shot. Obviously, the whole movie. It looks awesome. We didn't talk about who. I mean, Donnie, maybe you can look it up, or maybe you know who the cinematographer was while we're talking about it. But it's well shot, and the editor too. Well put together. Just the whole thing. And I'm sure Ari Aster, or I keep saying his name a little off. Ari Aster had a big hand in that since he was the director and the writer of this. It's his baby, through and through. But man, they did a great job on this movie.
I'm gonna fuck his name up.
Knocking.
Pavel Pogorzelski. Sure.
Yep, we'll go with it. Good stuff.
Good job, man. Good job.
Rough.
All right, Donnie.
Not as rough as that murder-suicide, though.
Yeah.
Man, you got a hard name, but it's not as hard as a murder-suicide.
Well, there's that, I guess. Ooh. Well, look, it didn't really happen, right? So it's all fun and games. But it's brutal, and basically that's what the whole movie is about, right? Just what happened right there.
Yep.
And then the fact that her boyfriend is a douche nugget to her, about it all the rest of the movie, just because basically he doesn't want to break up with her. He wants to
because
break
she was
up.
dealing with the grief of this.
Yeah, obviously, but like right before it happens, or right before he finds out that it happens, right? He's having a conversation with his friends, and that like he wants to break up with her. I guess kind of right, but also doesn't want to. Like, it sounds like he wants a break more than a breakup. Like, maybe I won't be able to get her back or something like that. But then at some point, I guess because this happens, he's just like, man, fuck this chick, I'm out, And then just for whatever reason has her tag along all the time, even though he clearly doesn't want her around. And I don't know. I guess it's just the thing about how relationships can be complicated, and people that should get out of them don't know how to get out of them sometimes and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of those type of themes going on here, right? More smarter stuff than we usually deal with here on the Spook Show.
Yeah, a little bit deeper things going on there. Now, as I said in that the director's cut, there's even a little bit more of that along the way, to where you get a better picture of their relationship dynamic, I guess.
I love when they finally get to this village, after they've went on an acid trip out in the fields in Sweden. There's just a random bear in a cage. And then you don't see it again until later, and there's no explanation. I think even somebody's like, "What's with the fucking bear?" And don't worry about that.
So we're not going to talk about the bear.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's a bear in a cage."
and then you forget about it until later. Like, oh yeah, that bear. They leave it off the table long enough to where you just completely forget about it. That's pretty good. How about the scene a little bit later on with the elders and the cliff? Good God.
That was rough.
Yeah, that's an attention grabber.
Right? Atastupa.
Is that what it's called?
Ritual suicide? Yeah.
I forgot what they had said it was called, but basically it's like once you hit what the premise they have here is once 72. You hit 72, you're like, well, time to die. So I guess every year all the 72-year-olds just walk off a cliff. Yeah. There's a man.
Oh, my legs.
There's a man and a woman. The woman walks off first, and she takes it face first on a rock. So she's dead. The guy steps off and just goes straight down. And by the way,
feet first.
Yeah, and then it crushes his legs. But by the way, I love that I don't love that this happens, obviously, right? But I love in the context of this movie, right, that they let you see it happen. Because usually movies have that tendency of like cutting away.
Yeah.
No, you're watching. You're watching this shit like, bam, her hit that rock face first, and then they don't stay on it long, but they stay on it long enough to see like, yeah, her face is gone. You're looking at it, and then the guy steps off straight down, legs, so he's still alive, and then they have to take a hammer and bam, clock him a couple
times.
Where's
the customary mallet?
Now I can't remember if this was in the director's cut or not. And that one, did they hit him in the head more than once with a hammer in the regular theatrical version, or no?
Yeah, the one that I watched, which I assume is theatrical, they hit him twice.
Yeah.
Oh,
they walked
there's a third hit in this one. Then.
Okay, well, there's one more hit. So that's what makes it NC-17. 3 hits with it. 3 sledgehammer hits.
In the jump off the cliff, there was a little bit more dwelling on her face aftermath, or hitting the rock. A little bit more of the face demolishing, I think.
Yeah. I mean, they don't shy from it. I mean, from what you see, like, you see it happen, you see her face. They take a massive, like, Harley Quinn-sized hammer mallet to his head, and you see it, and then they make you see it a couple more times even after that. Because, they take the bodies away and burn them.
Oh, yeah. Cremate them afterwards. So just a close-up. Close up of the mutilated faces as they're like,
Yeah, let's look at it again. It's pretty brutal, but obviously they're freaked out, right? So, but yeah, I thought it was a great scene, and it's really, I mean, if you think about it, as far as the movie as a whole, it's probably the most violent, wouldn't you say? I mean, like the end, what happens at the end, we'll get to it in a minute, but like really, it's probably the most goriest, violent thing that happens in the movie, right?
Yeah, and I think it was well done. Seeing it in the theater with the group, that definitely got a response, you might say, I guess. Because, a lot of people, I mean, I kind of had an idea, I knew what was going to happen, and maybe some other people did too, and just didn't expect them, like you said, to show it from all the way down, and then bam, and then the face thing and all that. Yeah, it was pretty intense in the theater.
I could imagine. I blank on my reaction first seeing it, but it was probably, whoa, it's like you do anticipate it, but you don't. I love that though, that like they take the bodies, they burn them, and then they take the ashes and put it like under a tree or something, right? So I guess it's like the old ancestor tree. I guess
the ancestor tree that plays another role in it.
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to get
that's what happens right after is when their buddy Mark just walks up and starts pissing on the tree. And then that guy gets all, obviously, he gets mad about it that, this motherfucker's, he's pissed on my ancestors or whatever. And I love that a little bit later on that like the guy keeps side-eyeing him about pissing on the tree. When he's like, this guy's staring at me and they're eating or whatever. And he looks across the way and the guy's just, dead eyeing him. Unfortunately, this is about where it kind of goes off the rails as far as like people start disappearing. Right. But right before that, because that's where Mark, like one of the girls comes over and takes like, I'm going to go show you something. What did she say? Like, come here, I'm going to show you this. And he's like, hold on a minute, guys. I'm going to go over. She's going to show me this or something. He just leaves.
It's so random.
He just leaves with her. Meanwhile, they have served up these pies. They're like little small meat pies. I don't know what kind of pie it was, but the one that they served Christian though was a hair pie.
Say that again.
It was a hair pie. He ate hair pie, and then they went ass sliding, and then different movie. My bad. That was last week, but yeah, like he eats hair pie. Like he's got. There's a damn pube in the pie right now. Before you see this scene, though, there's this one pan shot of like a tapestry, like a handmade, like hand-painted tapestry type thing that kind of explains, I guess, what you see later on in the movie. What you're seeing here is that, like, I guess when they're going to put the love spell on somebody, that particular girl has to clip one of her pubes off and put it in the dude. He has to eat it, right? And then I guess she has to bleed like her menstrual blood in a drink to get him to drink it. Because that's what it's in the cup, right? The glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he eats hair pie and washes it down.
No wonder they have to bring people in to do this.
Yeah, because anybody that's familiar with the customs is like, oh, fuck no.
Look, Sally's cool and everything, but damn.
Knocking! Yeah, that was pretty rough. But I do love the callback to that later on in the movie when the leader of the village or whatever, like, finally, like, comes face to face with Christian, like, look, Olga or whatever her name was, she's got the hots for you. He's like, yeah, I think I ate one of her pubes.
Just nonchalant.
Yeah. I think I ate one of her pubes in a pie or something. How about when Josh goes into the temple or whatever that was, like a library or something, and he's taking pictures of the book, and then somebody walks up behind him and takes him out, like hits him in the head with a hammer or something, and he's wearing, I want to make sure I get this right, he's wearing the face of Mark, right? That guy that just that guy that just got taken away by the that random chick, right? Now, was it the one that's like an inbreed? I can't remember that character's name. The one that's kind of like.
Technically, they all are inbreeds.
Well, they do kind of explain that. Well, I guess they bring in random people sometimes.
Level of inbred.
Yeah. I guess there's a certain level, right? They purposefully make her like hardcore inbred. I don't know how you make it any worse, but
someone get hardcore inbred.
Well, that's kind of the way to describe it, right? Like, yeah, we make sure she's fucked up. So I don't know what the extra inbred is, but she is. Meanwhile, it just looks like she's had an allergic reaction to a bee sting. Is what it looks like. It's rough.
Yeah, I think that goes back to something in folklore because they call her an oracle. I guess it's supposed to be like can tell things, see things, future visions or whatever. But there's something about that in like going all the way back to Roman and Greek times or something about oracles being. It might be that they're inbred, but they're in some way different looking, like they're deformed or whatever in some way.
So was that, I guess my question is, was that her that, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter, but was that her that took out Josh wearing Mark's face? Or was that just some other person?
I thought it was her wearing the face, right? But didn't somebody else hit him from behind while he's in there?
That was another thing too. I couldn't tell whether it was two people or one, because it was kind of a weird angle that you see there and you don't see it. You just see one person, right? But it kind of did look like there was two people there.
Yeah. I don't know, because it's kind of weird the way it plays, because he gets hit from behind, right? Because he's got the, he gets hit in the back of the head, but yet he's staring at Mark, quote unquote, the Oracle or whatever, wearing Mark's face, but then he's hit from behind. So.
By the way, did I just miss see it? Because I didn't rewind it. Were they that person was wearing his face? Were they wearing pants? Weren't they standing like naked from the waist down? I think, and then like he's like, Mark, what the fuck are you doing here? Close the door, and then bam,
Wait, is that really something you're questioning?
What?
I mean, is that really something you're worried about? If they were,
I'm not worried about it. I'm just wondering if I was the only one that saw it.
Are they wearing pants?
I was asking about, because was in the director's cut, there's like clearly penis there. I thought.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like some dude's just standing there wearing another guy's face. It was junk out. Like what the hell's going on?
I don't know if he was wearing his junk out, or was it he wearing the other guy's junk? Was the other guy's junk cut off and he was wearing that?
God, you just took it to a whole other level. I didn't. Not in my wildest imagination did I go there.
And yet,
the body of a jumpsuit.
Well, this will be the last broadcast of the All American Spook Show podcast. We thank you for the last nearly 5 years. We almost made it, but here we are. 161 episodes. Bye. Later on, Danny wins. They have this dance-off competition, for lack of a better term, whatever the hell they call it, where they all just kind of run around in a circle and dance until they all start dropping out, until finally, like, it's her and a couple other ladies, and then they fall out, and then Danny wins. So now she's named the May Queen of this whole shindig, the festival, which I guess in some ways puts her on a pedestal, I guess, and gives her some level of power here in the situation.
Yes,
I would say, like, at this point, like, she's starting to accept a family that she's lost.
Yeah, she's found.
You mean like she's kind of replaced her family with these people? Like she's found
with all these people, yeah.
Yeah, because
who are like center support, and like that she's not getting from what's his name?
Clearly Christian? From Christian,
and or from. I mean, I don't know how she was with her family. I mean, obviously her sister was depressed. She knew that. She didn't know how depressed or whatever. I don't know what her family dynamic relationship was, but I think it also kind of shows sort of I guess modern urban family versus rural, community. Where she wasn't, I think that there's a whole lot of things going on here, and I haven't read any of Ari Aster's, if he's written anything about what his intentions for making the movie or his symbolism or any of that stuff. But it just seems like they're kind of again showing those differences of modern urban family versus these traditional, even though they're way over the top with what they do with the suicide, senior suicides and the hair pies and the whatever you want to call it, all these things going on. She's still finding community and family here that she wasn't finding in where she was
at the least with her boyfriend Christian, right? Like he's
a
piece of shit, the way he treats her and everything.
Do we have a new shirt on the way, by the way?
Well, I know we're definitely doing the ass sliding thing. What about you talking about hair pie? Is that what you're
hair pies?
Yeah.
It's starting to turn into something right here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is now a t-shirt company. That's what we are. So now you're coming up on some of the more memorable scenes of the movie. Like you've had a couple big ones here, but I think these are two of the more memorable takeaway type of scenes. First one, Christian having sex with whatever her name was, Olga, whatever, the village girl, while there's a whole group of women, like in a semicircle around them. And then basically they start getting involved. Like one of them comes up and starts holding her hand as he's having sex with her. And then there's another one that comes up behind him and starts pushing him in like further as they're having sex. This is some,
yeah. Cause they say something like, no, don't stop. And then that's when cause I guess he was getting weirded out, of course, getting weirded out or get tired, whatever the case may be.
I'd say weirded out.
And then I guess he wasn't slowing down. He wasn't going fast enough. Don't stop. So they start.
Yeah, that 60, 70-year-old woman gets behind him and starts shoving his ass.
Yeah, like pushing, like, hey, here you go.
Pushing on his cheeks.
And then when he finishes, he turns around and looks at her and she's like, God. Now, we know she's not over 72, otherwise she'd be dead. So
yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
Somewhere in her 60s. But, yeah, that's one of the more memorable scenes. And also, during this, Danny looks through the keyhole literally and sees this go down. So she is upset, obviously, and she goes back to the group of women that are with her, and then she just kind of falls down and starts crying, and then like moaning, crying, right? Like completely breaking down, crying, and then the whole group starts crying with her. It's like, well, she's upset. Let's all be upset. Oh, yeah.
And that's part of the theme going through the thing too. Because what was the first time that happens? It's not. I know the second time it happens is with him having sex with
I think that's kind of the first, and then right after that, so you have two moments of it kind of happening, really kind of at the same time here.
Like there was something earlier in the movie, and I can't remember right now what it was. There was another communal moaning / whatever you want to call it. Oh yeah, it was the Atastupa ritual or whatever. Whenever they jumped off, and the one who messed the man's legs that was messed up before he died, he was moaning, and of course, and as you would if you jump off a cliff and your legs hanging off.
Yeah, and you're not dead.
Yeah. So then when they hear that, then they all start. So it's kind of like this, I guess, communal. What do you call it? Like
it's like
empathy.
Empathy. Yeah. That person, they all start acting the same way. Yeah. It's like empathic. But I would say these two scenes, the sex scene, because it's so weird and fucking like, what the hell have I just seen, kind of thing that and then the Danny crying scene, because like you see this a lot, like I guess in the trailer or clips of the movie and stuff like that, you see her screaming and moaning and crying in this, like it's one of those just key scenes that, kind of sticks in your mind. Christian runs away from this, as you should. But after he has the weird sex, and like, she's like, she holds her legs up. I feel the baby inside me. And he's just like, fuck. And he runs away butt naked, dangle in the wind. He's running out in the field, runs into a barn. And this is where you start to like, this is the Friday the 13th moment, right, Smoke, where all the bodies start popping up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because he sees the leg sticking up out of the ground, which was...
What the hell was that? Like
the actor's name, but the one that was taking the pictures in the chapel.
It was Josh. Like, what the hell was that, though? It's like, they've done a pretty good job of hiding things up to this point. Like, fuck it. Now, let's just let him see that we've planted a garden around his friend's foot. Here it is. And then he goes into the barn.
Yeah, right.
And sees the other guy, Simon, that was like brought by another dude from the village. He's flayed, right? Like he's been like drawn and quartered and skinned and whatever the hell, and he's just hanging. He's strung up and hanging from the top of the barn.
Well, that's part of, and you've seen it. You've seen this. They didn't show the ritual, but it's the blood eagle. Which, if you've seen Vikings, you've seen. Y'all seen the Viking series at all?
No.
Yeah.
Blood eagle scene. There's but that's part of a ritual that goes back to that time of where they would like slice open the back and pull out the lungs. And I mean, it generally wasn't done to just anybody like they do in this movie. It was done it was sort of an honor, really, that you do it to your enemy, your
worst enemy,
not just somebody you're sacrificing or whatever, like a great enemy that you defeated or.
Now, he's dead, right?
Yeah.
But it looked like his lungs were moving.
Yeah, he was. I think when Christian first walks in, he's actually. I guess he's breathing still.
I mean, it looks like they're moving to me. Now I know there's a lot of weirdness going on because it seems like half the movie they're on something, right? Like that's a big part of what's going on here. Is that you can you can tell because people's faces will be all contorted, or you look in the background and the grass or the trees, or it starts to look like a Van Gogh or something. Like there's a lot of weird stuff going on there. So clearly, people are under the influence a lot.
I don't know how long the lungs will pull air in from somebody that's been killed, but obviously he's been up there hanging for a while.
Yeah. I mean, because he's been gone for a while too.
Drugs, psychoactive drugs they had given him.
Christian,
they were seeing, because they see a lot of breathing, like you said, the trees breathing and everything.
Christian's freaking out. Of course, he turns around. Some dude's there, like blows some kind of dust in his face that paralyzes him.
Kabuki. No, it's not.
Yeah, like the Great Muda.
That would have been awesome if it's the Great Muda. They just spliced in some old footage from 1987. Great Muda spraying the mist in his face, and then it goes back to the movie. Like, what the hell was that? Yeah, so he's paralyzed. So they take him and like ceremonially stuff him in that bear. Remember the bear we mentioned a few minutes ago? They gut the bear and then basically stuff him in there as he's paralyzed. And then they put him in there's this big yellow like triangle temple in the village there. They put him in there in the bear suit with the bodies of all the other people, right, that came. And then there was a couple of people from the village. One of the guys that brought some of them there, right? And then there was another guy. Basically, like, they give them something to dull the pain, which apparently it didn't work. Surprise, surprise. And they're in there. So you basically got 3 people alive in there with all the bodies of the people that were brought there to begin with. And then they burn it down. The end. Now, during this, though, Danny is like the May Queen, right? So, like, there's some level of, like, she kind of is cool with this, right? Because clearly the last image you see, other than the burning of the place, is they cut to Danny sitting there and she smiles. Like, truly, the only time throughout the movie that it feels like she's actually happy is all of, watching this happen, right?
I think a big part of that, though, is just kind of the representation of the end of that relationship. Like she's finally moved on from, what happened from the beginning of the movie.
Her family.
Like she's ready to kind of wrap up that part of the grieving process.
Mm-hmm. So basically, what is this movie about? It's about dealing with grief, right? Like, I mean, at its root, that's what it is. It's like, well, there's these many stages of grief, and now this is extra fucked up because this fucked up thing happened with her family. She has a horrible relationship with her boyfriend, right? She's drugged halfway across the world in the middle of still dealing with all this shit. And, somehow she finds something to kind of replace her family, like you said. And now you're watching the stages of grief or something, right? There's some deep meaning to it.
So why he was sacrificed too? Well, they kind of wait for her as the May Queen to give the okay to sacrifice him, to do the whole thing that goes on. And she does she does give that okay. And then I guess that's when she has that, like you said, cathartic release from that relationship and from, the grief and then accepting this community and everything.
It's interesting. I mean, like I said, for a movie that's 2.5 hours long, it doesn't necessarily feel like, and at times it drags a little bit, but for the most part, it keeps going. I remember the first, this is only the second time I've sat through and watched the whole thing, right? I remember the first time watching it, I had more of a sense of dread about what was going on here than I did the second time I watched it. I guess because now I know, right, like I've seen it, so I know what happens to everybody. So I didn't feel that sense of like, oh, fuck, what's going to happen this time around. But that first time I remember feeling like the whole time you're kind of, there's a sense of dread and depression going on, because you don't know what's going to happen. What's going on here? What's going to happen to everybody, So this time around, I didn't feel that at all. I mean, what about, Donnie, you said this is the first time you've watched it. How'd you feel, throughout it and then getting there to the end?
Oh man, it was, what, and I've already mentioned this. So when I first saw the duration, I was like, oh shit, man, because that's about it. Because I have a short attention span as it is.
Yeah.
Say what?
I said you just dreaded the runtime, not the.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh. But it was actually, paced pretty well. It kept my attention, which
for all of us that know you is surprising.
Yeah, right. But no, I especially like the Blood Eagle execution method. And it sounds kind of morbid, but you don't really see a whole lot of that in pop culture. I think the only representations that we've seen and Smoke mentioned it in the Vikings series, but it was also in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that video game that they actually do it there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a completely fucked up execution method.
Yeah.
But
it's in,
I like that shit.
We could do it on Cold Corner maybe, but I know it's been in Valhalla Rising. I believe it was in that one too.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So, but no, beautifully shot. But yeah, up until the ending, it was paced well.
Will, you're the one that put this up. You nominated it, and this is what we're watching. So I'll let you do the star rating first. What'd you think?
I'm gonna go with 4.5 stars on this one. I mean, any movie that you can sit there, rewatch, and kind of catch something new, and the fact that like what y'all had mentioned just now, of the fact that it's like 2.5 hours long, and it flows. I mean, one of the coolest things I feel like in this movie is it's all shot in the in the daylight, and it's just as kind of dreadful as it is, from any other movie where they're running around in the dark.
Yeah, that's a good call.
So I don't know. It's just a good, different type of movie to watch. And I haven't seen Hereditary, and I would definitely look forward to seeing that after I've seen this.
We definitely need to get to that.
Yeah,
I was gonna ask that. Who has seen that? You've seen it, Josh?
Yeah,
Hereditary?
I've seen it. Yeah.
Donnie, you seen it
Yeah,
too?
yeah. I had nominated it. I think so recently.
I think
it's the antithesis of this movie as far as the cinematography. That movie is very dark. I mean, dark as in literal scenes that are dark. Whereas this one is the exact opposite, where it's shot. But like you said, you still get that sense of dread in broad daylight in the summertime with the bright colors and everything. It's just in that Hereditary, it is just a dark movie, both thematically and literally.
Yeah, no doubt. Smoke, what's your star rating? What do you think about this one?
Yeah, this one, I like I said, I've seen it, I don't know, 3 times now at least, I guess. But first time I saw the director's cut, and I definitely recommend that. I don't know where it is streaming, if it's, I know that it's on this box set that we got of Midsommar from A24, but like I said, I don't know how available it is, but I definitely recommend it. It's worth watching. Some of those director's cuts, they'll put it out there and it'll be 5 or 10 minutes, and it'll be some bullshit that they should have just left on the cutting room floor anyway. That you see the reason why they cut it out, because it's just messed up the pacing or whatever. This one is not like that. I think this one, all the scenes that were cut were probably cut for pacing because the movie was already long. But if you're watching it in the comfort of your own home, I would recommend watching it that way if you haven't seen it. So all the scenes that were added were a little bit of gore, like I mentioned. That was a little bit longer for the cliff diving scene and the various other little scenes. I don't know if the Blood Eagle, I know they didn't show the Blood Eagle happening, but I don't know if maybe there was a little bit more there that they showed of the body. I'm not 100% sure of that, but yeah. And then all the extra added scenes of them, characterization scenes between Danny and Christian, and as well as some of the other characters, were definitely added to the story, I thought. So, overall, though, yeah, I love this movie too. I'm gonna give it 4 stars. It's a solid movie, and if anybody who hasn't seen it, I'd recommend this and Hereditary. 2 movies, like I said, are complementary, but for different reasons, and both of them go to dark places here and there.
Yeah, for sure. I echo what you just said. I'm gonna give it 4 stars for the same reasons. I mean, it's well done. Great pacing, even though it's all in the daylight thing is a good call, Will, when you mention that, because a lot of the movies that we watch aren't like that. Of course you go day and night and everything and all, back and forth. Usually the horror is in the dark, but in this one, like, is there even one dark? I mean, I guess that's the whole point, right? Midsommar, like
at the beginning of the movie.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're right. At the very beginning. So I guess that's more the seasonal thing, right? Winter, dark, everything. Yeah. This dark period of our life, the symbolism. But yeah,
the only part I remember being dark when they get to, in Sweden, is inside the, not church, that's not the word for it, the temple.
Commune.
Whenever
place or
pictures. Yeah, because all the windows are shuttered, doors closed. Otherwise, it would be bright because they're in the summer, and it's the land of the midnight sun in Sweden and all that.
Yeah,
they have
that's what I was going to say.
Sunshine at that point in time for, like, I don't know, what is it, a month, 2 months?
Yeah, where basically it doesn't get dark. Or only very briefly does it get dark. So yeah, I say 4 stars. Donnie, what do you say?
I've already said pretty much everything that I would say. I like Hereditary more than I like this one. Okay, so I didn't watch the trailer at all when I got into it, and I was like, "Fuck, man! I hope this is not like another period piece," because I kind of struggle with period horror. A little bit, but
I think you weren't very favorable when we did The Witch, right? Like, you didn't like that quite as much as we did.
I think I don't know what I gave The Witch. I liked it though. I don't know what I actually gave it, but I do remember liking it.
Go ahead. I'll find out while you're talking. Go ahead.
All right, yeah, but basically if I would rewatch this, it has to be at least 3 stars for me. I'm not quite as high as you guys, but like I mentioned, it is beautifully shot. Will made a great point about there being just as much horror in the daylight versus night. So that's another really great point.
Yeah.
And the Blood Eagle reference and just the execution of that, that bumps it up for me. I'm at 3.5. Not quite as high on you, as you guys, but it's still I recommend it.
You gave The Witch 3 3/4.
Yeah.
Will,
yeah,
I think it was you that I was a little below the rest of us. You gave it 3 stars, so maybe that's what I was thinking of. Especially compared to Smoking Eye on that one. But anyways, if you like this kind of thing, you'll probably like The Witch, and we recommend you go to episode 127 back in the archives to listen to that one. And we also recommend checking out The Witch overall. I think we all enjoyed it enough to recommend it. So yeah, there you go. That's our thoughts as far as our star ratings and everything. But I mean, let's face it, that's only one thing that you come here for. One of the main things are
connections from the crypt.
No, there you go.
Yeah, right. So yeah, we just talked about The Witch. There are no cast. It's probably not a surprise, but there's no cast connections. There are a couple crew connections. We've got producers Thomas Bensky and Lars Knudsen. They were also producers for The Witch. And then we also have makeup effects Raquel Manura for Summer Camp from 2015.
What?
Way back for Camp Spookshow. Yeah, so going way back.
Chills.
Yeah, I thought you might like that. Yeah.
Something about this person in summer movies, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Will?
Kill. Count.
This should be interesting because it's not a high body count movie, I wouldn't think.
You'd be surprised.
Okay.
15.
Okay, I am surprised by that.
So you got the family at the beginning. There's 3. You've got the 2 old people that took the header off the mountain or the cliff. You had all the friends. So Mark, who got skinned alive. Josh, who got mallet to the head. Simon got the Blood Eagle. What?
I said, no, I didn't. I'm still here.
Look behind you.
What?
Connie, who got drowned. And then you had, I think it was a total of like 6 people that got burned to death. So 15.
Yeah. I guess it's about right when you start tallying them up. That naturally leads us to, let's talk about the kill reel.
Highlight kill.
All right, now what I'm thinking is the dude getting burned up in the bear suit, because that's that's the climax. That's the big moment of the movie, right? And that's a pretty fucked up way to go. Being paralyzed by some kind of dust and then stuffed inside of a dead bear and burned alive. You can't even, I guess you couldn't even scream. That's pretty rough. But I will say a close second are the cliff divers there. That's pretty close.
Yeah.
It's gruesome at least. But yeah, once again, natural transition.
Gore score.
Oh yeah, yeah. That cliff scene is brutal. I mean, if we're talking about straight gore, though, the scene at the beginning with the murder suicide, of course, is not gory. It uses gas to
Still pretty brutal.
So once we get, what's that?
I said it's still pretty brutal though.
Yeah, it's brutal. Oh yeah, if we're talking about just like emotional violence, so to speak, like what messes with your head, that's messed up. Yeah. That's a messed up scene. Actual gore, you pretty much get to the cliff diving, or the Atastupa, I think they call it, is the name of the ritual. That's that is the most brutal moment in the movie, as far as, especially in the director's cut, because it's a little bit more sustained shots on the aftermath and maybe even on the impact. Because I remember the impact on the theatrical version, they show it and it's kind of like a little bit of a bounce when his head hits the rock. Then because of the close up of his face just basically being demolished. And then the leg being, when he jumps off the cliff and is for whatever reason decides to jump feet first.
And then just goes straight down too. It's like he's diving in a pool.
I know it does. Like, I'll tell you, if I'm having to do that, I'm going head first.
Yeah,
or something like that. I don't want to feel it. I don't want to be alive.
They're doing it voluntarily, and they want to die. So, like, let's just make sure this is over. I don't want to suffer.
Yeah, I'm taking the literal header, like you said.
Yeah,
head first. You might not, it's not that far up. You jump head first, you're pretty much not going to get a full rotation, probably.
Let's analyze the cliff diving scene.
Yeah. At any rate, though, that's the most brutal, goriest moment in the movie for sure. Beyond that, you have the aftermath of the Blood Eagle in the shed that you see now. If they had shown that, talking about this probably would be a 10 if they, if you had the cliff diving and they actually showed the Blood Eagle, which is pretty intense, I'm sure it would be. But even without that, though, just the aftermath of that, I think it's not sustained gore through the whole thing, like some of the other things you said, like the bear. And I can't remember if this is in the theatrical version. Did they show the bear being slit or the bear being open and his intestines being there and then having to pull the intestines out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now maybe they stuck with it longer, but they did show it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's pretty nasty.
Yeah.
And then stuffing him in the body and then the burning up of it in the end. But really, if you think about it overall, there's not an intense amount of gore throughout the whole thing, right? So it's pretty much in the cliff diving scene and the Blood Eagle aftermath and a few other little tidbits here and there. But I think just because of how brutal that scene is, the cliff diving scene and everything, and the aftermath of Blood Eagle, I have to go with a 7 at least.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, and that's the other thing too is like, there's not a lot of gore, but the gore you get, I think, it has a higher impact because there's not a lot of it. Like the worst scenes. The worst scenes really stick with you for sure.
And even the scenes you said that don't even involve gore, you don't even have to have gore for that murder-suicide scene at the parents thing at the beginning. That sticks with you, maybe even in some cases, sometimes more so than the cliff diving scene, just of how emotional that scene leaves.
Yeah.
Without the gore or whatever, and then the same thing too with the bear suit thing at the end, like you said, like as you mentioned, it being the best kill. And that is the most memorable kill, even if it's not the goriest.
Well, so that's where we'll leave it. A gore score of 7. Overall, our consensus rating is an even 4 stars. So obviously, we highly recommend you checking this out. The usual aggregates, IMDb gives it 7.1 out of 10 stars, which is pretty good. Pretty much the same. Metascore, that's 0 to 100, 72. So pretty much exactly the same as 7.1 out of 10 stars. And then over on Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter, certified fresh, 83%. No surprise there. Audience score is a little lower at 63%, but once again, for a higher art factor type of movie, right, that's a little less surprising. So, overall, I think the critics and the audience generally agree. It's worth checking out at least once. And we agree with that, too, with our overall score of 4 stars. So that's where we'll leave it. So basically, that's the end of regularly scheduled programming right there. Because starting next week, we're getting into the Spookshow Summer Disaster. This is where we should put in like the breaking news alert, disaster coming, something like that. Breaking news. We're going to have a preview episode next week. So this will be on Memorial Day, May 29th, episode 162. We're going to kind of run through what we've got planned. We've pretty much got it all laid out, so we're going to lay the cards all out on the table so everybody knows what's coming this summer. Spoiler alert, we got some really cool things, I think, lined up for the summer. It should be an interesting series that we do here. And we're going to be kicking it off the week after that. The first movie that we're going to watch, we'll go ahead and tell you that, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Not the more recent remake of it, but the original from the 50s. I don't remember the exact year, but it was the one with, basically, they took the original version of Godzilla and Americanized it with Raymond Burr, right, Smoke? That one is what we'll be talking about in episode 163.
That was 1956.
So there you go. If you're looking for which copy, it's the re-edited version of Godzilla, King of the Monsters from 1956 that we'll be watching to kick everything off. So lots of cool stuff lined up. You don't want to miss a thing. Head over to aaspookshow.com for all that. So for Donnie, Will, Professor Smoke, I'm Josh. We are the All-American Spook Show Podcast, and we'll talk to you next week.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.